Worst loss ever. Literally. Welcome to Syracuse Sports Live. This is Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare provider for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe, and I would say great to be here tonight, but we're sorting through some rubble here. Always great to be talking with you, and always appreciate you guys showing up for the live pod or maybe listening later. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your pods, so you can listen and watch on demand here. But not fun to sort through a 37-point loss. The worst loss in the Adrian Autry era. 101-64, the final score from Cameron Indoor Stadium. That tops a 36-point loss that Autry also had to North Carolina back in January of 2024. That is the worst loss that Syracuse has suffered since joining the ACC. Worst conference game and one of the worst losses in the history of the program. The fifth worst loss in Syracuse history. I've got more stats. We've got more medicine to take on that one here. So just a pathetic showing from Syracuse basketball and national television on what used to be a prime spot for Syracuse. You used to look forward to those big Monday games. Now it's just cringe time when Syracuse plays on Big Monday. Last Big Monday game, now technically they only lost, what was the final score, to North Carolina. I think it was by 10 or 12, but they were down in the 30s in that game as well. When Syracuse gets these big-time prime matchups, Big Monday, ESPN, standalone games, they get their doors blown off, and they have not fallen any further from the top of the conference that they somewhat competed in their first 5-6 years in the ACC, but could not be any further than that. It's like when they play a team like Duke or Carolina, it's like a helicopter lifts them up to the top of the mountain temporarily and then just brings them back down, and they cannot be any further from being able to see the top of this conference, other than when once in a while Duke or one of the top level teams in the ACC says, yeah, you guys can play us. I guess you kind of have to. It's like the conference rules and stuff like that, right? 101-64. Cam Boozer had a double-double by halftime. He ends up with 22 and 11 on the day as Duke's bench came in the second half. And, guys, Duke in the second half of this game shot 71.9%, 72% essentially. 23 of 32, 9 of 12 from three-point range. Those are their second half numbers. What have I told you? That at one point, Syracuse trailed Duke 29-24 with 3 minutes to go in the first half. You would probably think, kind of bourbon you getting into on a Monday night, Brent, kind of early in the week for that, right? But no, it was 29-24 with 3 minutes to go in the first half. Duke goes into halftime scoring 11 straight. They come out of the half on a 12-4 run. Just like that, Duke led 52-28. And it was good night, Gracie. I don't think I'm surprising anybody by what I'm saying here. I think most people kind of took a deep breath, came into this one, said, just make it respectable. If anything, cover the point spread for entertainment purposes only. Duke was, depending on which for entertainment purposes only service that you go with, or maybe Joey Bag of Donuts on the corner, I don't know. But it was 20.5 points. I believe, and if I'm wrong, I'm probably not that far off here. That is the biggest margin of error that Syracuse has been an underdog in a conference game. And if it's not, it's very high on the list here. So Syracuse coming off 2 wins, a double overtime win over Cal last Wednesday and the power surge night at the Dome. And then, of course, the 1-point win over SMU. They showed some heart. They showed some guts. They showed at least that they're going to fight. They are going to play as hard, and again, I don't compliment effort here, but you're going to get a top-to-bottom effort from this team, right? And I think most people, even coming into a game like this, say, just don't embarrass yourself on national television. Just don't embarrass yourself on Big Monday. I mean, when Syracuse alum Dave O'Brien, shout out to Dave for having his second grandchild, that's not something I should be hearing Dave O'Brien talk about on the ESPN broadcast. That's something that Dave O'Brien and I should talk about before the game, before he actually calls a basketball game. When you go into the filler material of showing the second grandchild on ESPN, and I think you guys know how I feel about Jay Williams, so I was already gritting my teeth through that. It just goes to show you what kind of game and night it turned into. So Syracuse is 15-12. They're 6-8 on the season here. There's 4 games to go, and I think people in the regular season We'll see what happens in the ACC tournament. But I think people, after a little bit of a surge, a little bit of a 2-game spurt, I don't know, maybe they got something in them. Maybe you're just kind of in, let's just get through this mode. Let's just get through this. Let's see some changes made. And that's a decision in and of itself. We've got a couple great comments from our Syracuse Sports Insiders that say even if they do make a change, and when they make a change, when the inevitable happens here, how serious is Syracuse going to be about this? How serious is the new chancellor, the new athletic director going to be, and what kind of coach do they bring in, and what do they pay this person, and what is their NIL budget, and all those questions that you have to ask in this day and age, because there is no game that shows you more where you stand in the ACC than to play the best of the best. I mean, Duke is playing for the number 1 overall seed. Cam Boozer is going to be the top pick in the upcoming NBA draft, if not a top 2 or 3 pick in the upcoming NBA draft. We all understand that they are on a proverbial different level than Syracuse is. But not so long ago, kids, Syracuse used to compete in these games. You go back to, and I mentioned at the top, this is the worst Syracuse has lost in an ACC game since joining the conference 13 years ago. You go back to the beginning of when Syracuse joins the ACC, that epic game at the Dome, February 1st, 2013-14 season, 91-89 game, they beat Duke. Think of that moment. Think of 35,000 plus in the Dome. Think of where Syracuse was, having flipped from the Big East and the end of the Big East into the ACC, and they not only gave Duke a run for their money, they beat Duke in one of the greatest college basketball games I have ever seen and you have ever seen. They go to Cameron and lose by 6 later that season. Now we're in the 2014-15 season. They lose by 8 at home in a game on Valentine's Day, right? Then go to Duke a couple weeks later, and yeah, they lost big there, but big in this case was 18 points versus 37 that they lost by today. They go to Cameron the next season. We're now in the 2015-16 season. They win by 2. They win by 3. The next year at the Dome, we're now in the 2016-17 season. Win by 3 in a year they don't even make the NCAA tournament. That's the John Gillen game. John Gillen shot, bing, down goes Duke. 78-75, okay? Here's where the losing streak begins. So tonight marks the 11th straight loss Syracuse has had to Duke. No, I stand corrected on that. Let me go a couple games. They lose 60-44, 17-18 season. Then they play Duke in the Sweet 16 and lose by 4, 69-65. That's the 2017-18 season where they lose to Duke in the Sweet 16 by 4. Next year, ties battle, bing, overtime, Syracuse wins 95-91. Here's where the losing streak begins. And just listen to these scores. 75-65, 84-72, 97-88, 85-71, 79-59, 97-72, 88-79. That was in the ACC tournament. 77-55, 86-66, 83-54, 101-64. So Syracuse has lost 11 straight games to Duke by an average of 20.7 points per game. Judge Schmale said it best in Caddyshack. How do you measure yourself against other golfers? And it's not by height. It's by what you do against the best of the best in the league. And you just kind of add on to when Syracuse has to punch up in the Autry era, it doesn't go well and has not gone well. 2-12 now against AP top 25 teams under Adrian Autry. Average loss, 21 points. Syracuse is 5-23 against top 80 KenPom teams over the last 2 seasons. Shout out to Sam Fetterman for that stat. Syracuse is 4-24 in quad 1 games. This is all under Autry. They have lost 24 games by double digits under Autry. No game worse than tonight. Syracuse's 3 losses to Duke under Adrian Autry. They have been outscored by a total of 86 points in 3 games. The 11-game losing streak by an average of 20.7 points per game that I just mentioned. So this 37-point loss by Syracuse. Are you holding your nose while I read these stats? This 37-point loss by Syracuse's tonight, second most lopsided conference loss, only trailing. Remember the DePaul game in 2006? 39-point loss to DePaul on March 2nd, 2006. You know what happened after that? That was the Jerry McNamara Big East tournament run. So, yeah, worst loss in the history of the Boeheim era, one of the worst losses in the history of the program. At least Jerry McNamara pointed to his back and said, let's go on a run here in the Big East tournament, something this team is not going to do in the ACC tournament, right? It's their third conference loss by 30 or more points, joining that 36-point loss at UNC a couple years back, and as noted, tied for the fifth worst loss in Syracuse men's basketball history. So I'm sorry that I'm just like rubbing salt in the wound here, but it just demonstrates where this program is at when they try to punch up, when they try to play the best of the best. Now, you got a North Carolina team coming to the Dome on Saturday that is not a Caleb Wilson. It's a North Carolina team that Syracuse did come back on in the second half there. And Syracuse has played weirdly well against times in Carolina in recent years. They had the win at the Dome in the last 2 years. So who knows what happens Saturday, right? When you think of the elites in the conference, those are the two names that come up the most. But they could not be any further away from being able to compete with Duke, which I know sounds stupid to come out of my mouth, but I've seen it before. You've seen it before. It has happened. They have beat this team. They have been competitive with Duke, and I know we're in a whole new era, but as one of our insiders is going to point out here shortly, just what Duke is. I mean, Duke's Duke. Duke's the standard in college basketball these days. Their NIL budget and their coaching and everything is just so high above Syracuse. I get that, but when you joined the ACC 13 years ago, you would think in that time frame, you would have figured it out by now and taken the Big East money, taken the ACC people. I've got it on my brain when people are like, I got to go back to the Big East. No, they can't do that. But I don't blame you for wanting that, for thinking back to when these games meant something and conference games were not an embarrassment when you tried to punch up at the top of the league. So Freudian slip there with thinking about the old Big East. But in 13 years, this thing has done nothing but go progressively down with a couple of blips on the radar. But they have not finished higher than sixth in the league since their first year in the league. It's been 13 years. Here, 13 years into the league, your worst loss since joining the conference. Let that sink in for a minute. You're 13 years into the league, worst loss, right? It's getting progressively worse the longer you've been in it, with the opportunity to build up budgets and have all the discussions that we have in college basketball these days. And I harken back to what I said a moment ago. New chancellor, new AD, how serious are they going to be about this thing? And it's so easy to talk about money. It's not just about money. It's having a coach that knows what he's doing. I think they have a general manager who knows what they're doing, and it's going to be tough to bring Alex Klein back under a new administration because the new coach is going to want to do his own thing. And I like Alex a lot, and I think this is a team that is better on paper than what they've been coached and what they should be. And that, now to get into the nitty, I'm 13 minutes in the show. We haven't really talked about the nitty-gritty of this game because why would you? Right? No, why would you? These are big picture things that you think about. But I brought it up a minute ago. They're down by 5 with 3 minutes to go. Syracuse had a ton of open looks early in this game, which, by the way, you're going to beat Duke. You got to hit threes. Okay? You got to hit threes. You got to take care of the ball. And you've just got to absorb the impact as much as you can from Boozer and what that team can do in the paint. Points in the paint tonight, 52-30. In favor of Duke. Second chance points tonight, 22-14. Rebounds, 39-29, right? You knew that Duke was going to win the paint. You had to hit threes. Syracuse ended up with 10 threes in this game, but obviously that number gets a little inflated. Duke was 12 of 20 from three-point range. Duke shot 62% in this game. Syracuse shot 41%. I brought it up earlier. Duke shot 72% in the second half of this game. By the way, second half, Duke, what are these, like third stringers in the game by now? Diving for loose balls. Still playing like they have a 3-point lead, not a 37-point lead, right? Syracuse needs its big star, its top player, its projected NBA draft pick to show up on a moment like this. Donnie Freeman, 9 points, 4 of 8, 1 of 5 from three-point range. He grabs 3 rebounds. J.J. Starling, remember when they brought J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman back, you need those two to show up in these big games. J.J. Starling, 3 of 13. He scores 9 points. He hits 2 threes, 4 assists on the night. After a game, which he sat for most of the second half, which he had to, because that lineup that they had in against SMU, which included Kai and Anthony, needed to be in that game in the second half. But your two biggest stars, your senior leaders, I say seniors. JJ's a senior, Donnie's a sophomore. You get what I'm saying. Your veteran leaders is the word that I meant to say there. They combined for 18 points. Combined for 18 points. Boozer had that by halftime, right? He ended up with 22 and 12 on the night. And I'm not comparing those two to Boozer. Boozer is going to be the number one pick in the draft. Donnie Freeman might be a pick in the draft, but it's too much of a no-show from your two guys that you need to step up. Nate Kings has been on a heater as of late. You needed him to keep that up in this game, 10 points. 4 of 9, hits a couple of threes. Nathan George, 8 points. William Kyle III, I will give him his flowers for playing 90 miles per hour in this game. But when William Kyle III, who was their leading scorer, right, you have 12 points. No offense to him, but if he's your leading scorer, that shows you something's going wrong here, right? That shows you that too many other players are not contributing the way they need to in this game. Kyle needs to be a complement offensively in the paint. He played hard. He went at it, hit the rack. Some great inside moves. He's a great shot blocker. There were some blocks that gave Syracuse possessions the other way, but I guess when I say you're waiting for the inevitable, you're not waiting to get blown out by 37 points. I don't care what Duke is, who they are, what their ranking is, how many NBA draft picks they have. You got blown out by 37 points in a conference game that I would say everybody was watching, but, I mean, how many people tuned away at some point and watched the Olympics or something? So they took mercy on Syracuse in that case. But it's just state of the program stuff. And there's no better way to measure yourself against the top in college basketball than to play, which earlier in the year they did. They played Houston, almost beat Houston. If they made their free throws, they would have beaten that team. Now, the Houston that we're talking about on February 16th versus the Houston they played in Vegas around Thanksgiving, different team. But you can't control that. You control what you can control when you play a team on your schedule. Houston, Hofstra, Boston College, Virginia Tech, you're not going to win all those games, but at Syracuse controlled the games they could control. They would come into this game tonight and it wouldn't be so devastating. It'd be devastating from all the standpoints of the score and the embarrassment, and you're still trying to level yourself up to a team like Duke, but they played a top 5 team. They played a Kansas the next night, who, mind you, had some injuries, but gave that team a run. But you know, one of the other 30-point losses under Autry, Iowa State on that third night. Iowa State beat Syracuse by 31 points. One of 24 double-digit losses. One of 3 30-point losses in 3 years under Autry when you're playing high-level teams. Duke, Carolina, Iowa State, right? There's just no better way to make that point. You can't make that point when you're beating Cal and beating SMU and some of the other games where Syracuse has shown up this year. Those are great. You got to take care of business in those games. But when you're trying to punch up, the numbers speak for themselves. They speak for themselves. We went over it. So there was a fleeting moment there where Syracuse was getting good shots. They were in this thing. They're only down by 5. But I think we are all just waiting for the wave to crash onto the beach. Duke is inevitable. And boy, did Duke kick it into gear with that run into halftime and the run out of the second half. Now, I don't want to play the what-if game, but man, did Syracuse have some open looks. Wide open, clean three-point looks early in this game that they just couldn't hit. We mentioned Donnie Freeman, 0 for 3 at one point from three-point range. It seemed like everybody missed a wide-open 3 in the first half. I'm just going back over my notes here. JJ misses a 3. Donnie misses a 3. Kai and Anthony comes in. He turns the ball over. That's part of a 9-0 run from Duke. Duke had several runs in the first half. No one bigger than the one going into halftime to put them up, 40-24 at the break. Kings misses a couple of 3s. Kyan misses a 3. Like, these were good, clean looks. Now, what would have happened is I think Duke just would have weathered the storm and pounded Syracuse in the paint anyway, as they ended up doing. What was that paint number tonight? What was 52-30? Yeah, 52-30, right? But there's something about if you can, Cameron Crazy's never shut up. You don't shut up the Cameron Crazies, but if you could take the Cameron Crazies down from like a 9.7 to a 7.7 and show you're there to play and just sell out, and momentum is a funny thing in sports, but you make a few of those shots and your confidence builds, you're here to play, and you can tell yourself, man, we're in this thing with one of the best teams in the country. Now, again, I think Duke eventually would have done their Duke thing and just pounded Syracuse in the paint. They couldn't keep up, and foul trouble shows up. Cam Boozer's in the game longer, and Duke inevitably wins. But I don't know, maybe you cover the point spread. Maybe you don't get blown out by 37 points to Duke at Cameron in a game where, like I said, everybody kind of, hey, what's on Netflix, honey? Let's watch the Olympics. Like, no one's watching this game in the second half, except us sickos, just riding this thing out, listening to Dave O'Brien talk about his grandchildren. Nothing against Dave O'Brien, I get it, but that's when like, we're in trouble here. See what you guys had to say, because we had plenty of reaction from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Your thoughts, your questions, your opinions, your comments, and boy, we are in crossover season, man. Syracuse men's lacrosse, #1 team in the country. Officially today. Syracuse women's lacrosse going on. Syracuse women's basketball. Big win over Clemson. They're steamrolling towards the NCAA tournament. 21-5 now. 21-5 for Felicia Leggett-Jack's team, who's just working on seeding for the tournament at this point. They want to get out of that 8-9 line that they're kind of sitting in now, because then you're just playing like UConn or South Carolina in the second game of the tournament, much like we're talking about tonight. You don't match up with those teams. So you want to try and get a little bit of a higher seed so you can see if you can make a stronger run in the tournament. But they're making a run for the tournament. Found out today when the Syracuse football spring game is, when Syracuse football spring practice starts, about a month from now, right? All this stuff crossing over into the end of the basketball season. So we got a lot to talk about and a lot to keep you updated on. So being a Syracuse Sports Insider not only gives you direct text message access to me anytime to talk about all these things with me here on the pod as well, because we only feature comments from our Syracuse Sports Insiders on the pod. Well, we got to keep you updated on all these things that are happening here and sent directly to you. Cut through the noise, cut through the social media clutter. Don't even go on it, right? Just text with me. Direct text message access to me anytime. All the info right there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube on how you can become a Syracuse Sports Insider today. Here's what you guys were saying tonight. Michael S., we may be in Duke's conference, but we are not in Duke's league. That about wraps it up right there. That is well said. Brian B. says, it's just so deflating to keep getting embarrassed by top-tier teams. Robbie T., sticking with it, man. Duke did exactly what we all thought Duke would do tonight. I stand by Red Autry and the guys until John Wildhack tells me not to. We had good shots early, but they didn't go in. Those are the baskets that needed to be made to plant the seeds for a major upset. From Mike, no structure, no plan, no success. From Sean, John Shire, elite coach, elite players, and elite NIL budget. Adrian Autry is a bottom 4 coach with average power 4 players and an average power 4 NIL budget, which speaks to what we were saying earlier. If you're going to be serious about this thing, you've got to spend more money, right? That's the thing with making a coaching change. It doesn't just change everything like that. It can. There are coaches that have gotten teams right into the tournament and have made an immediate turnaround. It can happen, but the investment's got to come from everywhere, right? So is Syracuse going to be willing in an era where there is serious donor fatigue about NIL and where's my money going and how's it being spent? Who's out there that's going to say, yes, right here, I want to spend more money to fix this thing, right? Not saying it can't happen, but it's as tough a sell as you can get right now. Craig B. says, didn't expect this team to be competitive, but this is horrible. It's so sad to see how far that Syracuse basketball has fallen. From Chris, who says, Kansas State did not wait to do the inevitable. Now, if you've been following that story, that is a coach goes to a press conference, probably shouldn't have said what he said, that those guys don't deserve to wear the uniform and questioning who they are and what they are. I mean, hey, buddy, you know who recruited those players? You know who brought them in? You did. So that's as much on you as it is on them. Fired him. Kansas State coach out And the university is basically citing like he embarrassed the school. There's like verbiage in his contract, so they're trying not to pay him. And they just gave him an extension, right? So I get what you're saying, Chris. Not the same situation, but point is they were embarrassed and did not wait and did it. So Syracuse sitting here, never more embarrassed, technically, than we're sitting here tonight with a loss by Adrian Autry. Do you wait to do the inevitable, or does Wildhack stick with what he said, that he's going to let the season play out? While there's a search committee actively looking for a new athletic director as we speak. From Matt S., this says, personally, I think the reality is the incoming chancellor and AD need to decide what type of programs they want and either find the money or don't expect much success and try to sell us that they want success. It's now a literal put the money where your mouth is era. Very well said, Maddie. From Bruce, it says, so these are the kind of losses that occurred in the early 1960s before Freddie Lewis took over the program. That's how far you got to go back, when Syracuse was consistently overmatched by upper echelon teams and completely non-competitive. That was before Dave Bing came to Syracuse. Who's the Dave Bing of 2026 that wants to come in and save this thing? From Dahmer, who says, this game makes me feel sad for the future of not just Syracuse, but college basketball. I don't think Syracuse will ever get talent like Duke ever again because of NIL. From Jeff, who says, we brought it up earlier, it was over when the announcer was talking about his granddaughter. From David G., who says, just embarrassing tonight. We are showing no fight. Top 10 teams have routinely blown us out for 10 years running. I brought it up earlier. Under Autry, 2-12 against top 25 teams. Average margin of loss, 21 points. Spencer says, pathetic. Duke can't miss. Syracuse can't play a lick of defense. The offense is the same old story. They didn't have much of a chance going into this game, but they're hardly putting up any resistance. I want to talk about that for a second. They didn't have any chance in this game. Most of us came in this with a take a deep breath, get ready to take your punishment. The loss was inevitable. But do you feel like they went, and once it became 52-28, Duke makes that run coming out of halftime, and it's just a different mentality. But do you feel like when Syracuse was competitive in this first half, there was a time when Autry had 4 starters out of the game in the first half? He went hockey line on us. No. But his best player, here's where I'll be fair. His best players weren't doing it. Donnie Freeman wasn't doing it. J.J. Starling wasn't doing it. So who are those best players? Who is that lineup to keep in there? On the surface, that looks bad, and my instincts are like, what are you doing? But it's not like those guys were killing it either, right? So that's what kind of just knocks you back when you have this conversation, as Spencer noted there, right? But do you feel like they did absolutely everything? They ripped out the kitchen sink and threw it at Duke to win this game? Because they did not. Difference between, again, opponents, SMU, who's a good team, an NCAA tournament team, not a bottom rung ACC team. Lineups, pushing all the right buttons, smart coaching, sellout effort from the players, and they end up winning that game in the second half by the hair on their chinny chin chin by 1 point, versus tonight where even they kind of threw up their hands and said, well, we knew we couldn't match up in this game. Do you feel like that they did everything they could to win a game like that, or stay competitive in a game like this? That's where I think you start to lose people, right? Jared says, so something to consider. The entire Syracuse roster was on Duke's roster. Which Syracuse players average more than 15 minutes per game? Is there even one? Yeah, I think Donnie would when Donnie's on his game. And we saw our old friend Malik Brown again tonight. Let's see, Malik Brown. 19 minutes, 6 points, 3 rebounds. He's playing a complimentary role on that team. But you go through the Syracuse roster, I think Nate Kings could hang on Duke. I certainly think William Kyle could hang. Maybe he's playing like Malik Brown type numbers, but he can hang on that team. There's a few guys. It's not a long list, but I see what you're saying, Jared, but there's a few guys. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider not only gives you the opportunity to get your text messages read as a part of this program, it also gives you access to the secret voicemail line. So if you would like the secret voicemail line, well, being a Syracuse Sports Insider has its privileges. All you got to do is ask for it. Let's hear what our our insiders, we're all about tonight on the secret voicemail line. Give me 1 second here, ladies and gentlemen, so we can bring them up here. So, while those load up, give me 1 second here. We'll play them shortly here. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you access to the secret voicemail line, where you can leave voicemails, mostly for post-game shows, mostly for these live post-game shows that we do. So we've got hoops, a few more games to go. We're going to jump in on a couple more women's basketball post-game shows, especially with the postseason around the corner. We did a lacrosse post-game show Friday night. I got to thank you guys for that. Huge response to that. Was very encouraged how people were fired up about that. And we've got a couple conflicts coming up here, like Saturday. There's a basketball crossover, but we're going to get into a rhythm of doing lacrosse post-game shows. We'll keep you updated on that on the Syracuse Sports Insider text line, so you know which games we'll be doing. It's the number one team in the country. They got a hell of a schedule coming up here with 6 straight on the road, but we're going to be doing more of those shows. So we're kind of branching out, doing some different stuff on the post game, so we'll keep you updated on that. But thank you. What a response we had for lacrosse on Friday night. Now, that was Maryland. That was the number one team in the country coming in, 10,000 people at the Dome. But let's keep that going. Let's keep the interest going. You guys are into it, and you're following this team, and they're going to be away for about a month. That's kind of the shame of it. Now they go on the road for 6 straight, and they're not going to be back until March 22nd against Georgetown, but they're still going to be playing, and we'll still be tracking it both here on the pod and the Syracuse Sports Insider text line. But you can leave voicemails about anything. It doesn't have to be post-game voicemails, but that's typically where we tend to get the most, including from our first contestant here on The Price is Right. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Brent. Not that Jim B predicted outcome. Didn't think we had a chance, but didn't think we were going to lose this bad. Obviously, we knew Duke had, the more skilled team, but something that was obvious was Duke players, they do all the little things, diving for loose balls, going after rebounds, just fundamentally a better team. And you think, is that players or is that coaching? I mean, I think of 2 plays, that loose ball with Duke's up over 30 and the Duke players diving for the ball and, Cayenne just kind of jogging after it. And then earlier in the game when Donnie loses the ball, he doesn't go after it. The Duke player runs past him, dives on the ball, and Duke ends up with a fast break. And, speaking of Donnie, he just hasn't played well lately, and I don't know if it's him or the scheme, but, why is he getting the ball above the 3-point line? From there, he's either shooting a 3, which, he can make them, but that's really not his game to be shooting 3s all the time, or he's trying to go to the basket, which, again, is not his game. He doesn't have the handle to take it to the basket, and then when he's getting stopped, he's been making a lot of stupid turnovers. The only positive really from the game was William Kyle. I mean, he really showed something today. Young man's a gamer, and I'm hoping that he gets a shot at the NBA. He definitely deserves it. And then last but not least, and I know this is going to be sour grapes, but are there any more fans that are more insufferable than Duke fans? They're so arrogant, but year in and year out, they have the best talent, they have the best resources, the biggest support staff and the biggest coaching staff. And come March, they always disappoint. They haven't won a championship in over a decade. So maybe they should win a championship or 2 and back up their arrogance. Until that happens, it's just painful to watch. Anyway, thanks, Brent. We'll see you the next time around.
I hear you, Jimmy, and they got our number, though. 11 straight. What can you do, right? You and your stupid tents. Let's go to voicemail number 2.
Hey, Brent. Jack H. here from Pennsylvania. And, it was fun while it lasted, wasn't it? We had a couple good games last week that gave us some soft and warm feelings, but this was what we knew would happen. I don't think we knew it would happen this bad, but we knew it would happen. I think at this point there's no use talking about these games individually. It's time to reflect on the Adrian Autry era, which I know is not fun and, comes with all the baggage in the world of that, but it's true. We're in the transition phase, and so it's time to start start talking about it, and not just talking about what needs to come in terms of individuals, but specific things that we want to see differently. So I've got a few of those. One I think is roster construction. Looking at this team, I think even with much superior coaching, there's only 4, maybe 5 guys on the team that I would want us to bring back. Akir Soare, he's great, but he is a liability on offense, and we can't have guys like that, just to be successful. And so, that's not supposed to be a direct knock on him. There are other guys that, I would say the same thing, or vice versa, that they're such a liability on defense that it's not worth having. And so I think whoever comes in next, one needs to get to get as much out of the talent that's there, but also needs to be able to go and get talent that is well-rounded talent, not just as individuals, but as teammates together. The other thing that I just sort of find myself sitting here thinking about the Adrian Autry era, and this will be a phrase that will haunt all Syracuse fans, but I think it's very true, and that we need to be consistently good, not occasionally great. I know everyone is probably rolling their eyes thinking about Dino Babers saying that all the time, but it's true.
Yeah.
And what we saw from Syracuse men's basketball under Adrian Autry was occasionally great. The win over Tennessee, that win over North Carolina a couple years back, the
Miami,
almost win against Houston, right? We had those, but we also had times that we were very bad. We had times that we played down to lower competition. We had times that we played up to medium competition, and times that we just absolutely rolled over against great competition like we saw tonight. And so a better roster, a more well-rounded roster of individuals that can play with one another and consistently good. That's what I'm asking for.
Thank you, Dave. Great stuff. And thanks to our great Syracuse Sports Insiders for their insight, as always, here. Look, we're going to have plenty of conversations about what this program needs to do with the basketball coach. There are great head coaches out there. I think you have to bring in somebody who has had, put a number on it, I don't know, but is a head coach now. This sounds as simple as it gets. Just give me a great coach. Just give me a coach that has shown they win wherever they go. And there's a couple guys, and I know these are some names you've heard. Josh Schertz at St. Louis, Brian Hodson, South Florida, who is really, it's not a trade secret that he would want the Syracuse job. When it opens, he's from Olean. He is somebody that has had his eyes on the Syracuse job and would take it if offered, and has won at every level he's been at, and is a hell of a recruiter, right? These are simple things. These are simple qualifications. But again, I ask, is the new administration willing to spend on that? Willing to bring in that type level of coach? Willing to spend on NIL? Which, again, that's kind of a lame excuse in some ways. It's not like Syracuse is spending Boston College level money. Okay, they spent money in NIL. They're probably like middle of the pack in the ACC, but it's not like we're not shopping at the thrift store here. They spent some money on some players. They invested in some players and paid Donnie Freeman to come back and J.J. Starling to come. Now, that's a mixed result, but a Nate Kings and a William Kyle, that's a result of great scouting with NIL that Alex Klein did, right? So again, will that coaching staff bring back a guy like Alex Klein to invest? But that's where this thing is heading, right? It's already about as low as it can be. We went over all the numbers earlier. Now you've got to take a deep breath and be willing to let that process play out. Change a coach, invest in more money. I know you can change things quickly in the NIL era these days, but that doesn't mean you're back in the tournament a year from now. But you have to invest. You have to show you are doing, I said it a moment ago about this game, you can apply it to the big picture now. Can you really say you're doing everything you possibly can to win here at Syracuse? And will the new chancellor and the new athletic director be serious about that kind of investment for what is the front-facing program of Syracuse athletics. I understand that football generally is, and football's had a little success under Fran Brown, but what defines Syracuse athletics more than anything? It's men's basketball. End of the day. Your biggest front-facing program has a giant wound on it. What are you going to do to fix it? Those are the conversations we have now. Not that we haven't been up to this point, but really come to focus while we're just kind of getting through the rest of the season. And we will continue to have those on future episodes of Syracuse Sports. But that's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Sports Live, Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. Thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Thanks to you for listening and watching this podcast. Please subscribe. Don't forget to do that. If you listen on Spotify or Apple, if you watch on YouTube, wherever you get your pods, follow, like, subscribe so you don't miss a thing. We've got these post-game shows to do. We've got more women's basketball shows we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing more men's lacrosse shows and our usual episodes of Syracuse Sports. You don't want to miss a darn thing, so make sure you're subscribed. So when a new episode pops up, you can watch and listen on demand when you want. For now, worst loss ever. Literally, in the ACC and under Adrian Autry. 101-64, your final from Cameron Indoor. Duke takes down Syracuse. This has been Syracuse Sports Live. We'll talk to you again next time, guys.